Welcome to the Rig Doctor podcast, where I'm giving out remedies to soothe your ailing tone and fix your sick pedal boards. I'm your host, Mason Marangella, aka the Rig Doctor. I've been building rigs for over a decade for many of the industry's top pros, and now I'm giving away all my secrets to DIYers just like you. I'm giving away all of my tips, tricks, resources, and easy hacks that I've learned over the years so you can build a pedal board just like a pro. If you want to support this podcast, you can do it in a bunch of different ways. Easiest way is to write us a review on iTunes, or you could follow us on social media, places like Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. You can also support us financially by purchasing one of my products, Vertex Effects, from any of our authorized dealers all around the world. Or you could become a member of our Patreon. We have several Patreon memberships as low as $4.99 a month that give you exclusive access to private live streams, Q&As, exclusive deals and discounts on Vertex products, as well as early access to new product releases. Also, you can get personalized one-on-one phone and email conversations with me, the Rig Doctor, to coach you through your next rig build. This could be as in-depth as troubleshooting a problem on your pedal board in real time with me, or some emails advising you on next steps, on certain pieces of gear to buy, and good stuff just like that. I don't want money, though, to be the reason that you can't engage with the Patreon side. So if you don't have the means to do it at this particular time, that's no problem. We actually offer a free version of our standard account at no charge if means are an issue. That means if you just send us an email requesting a free account, we grant 100% of those accounts, no charge whatsoever. We just trust that once things have changed for you and you can afford the $4.99 a month, you let us know. But until then, your account remains free. I also want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Blue Microphones. Kevin Walt at Blue Mics is just the man. He gave us everything. We have Yeti mics, we have boom arms, we have pop filters, we have everything that a podcaster would need, and we supremely appreciate that. Thank you to Blue Microphones. Today I'm going to be speaking with one of my favorite guitar players, James DePrato. You may have never heard James's name, but I bet you've seen him on most of the Dunlop, MXR, any of the affiliated companies of Dunlop. He's been doing their demo videos for a decade. His fingers and licks are covered on all of the YouTube videos that they've put out over the last decade. So you've probably definitely heard James. He's also a sideman for Chuck Prophet. Today we're talking about how we met way back in 1999 when he was selling me a Eric Clapton model Stratocaster, when he worked at Guitar Center, when he was trying to figure out his way in the Bay Area as a new transplant guitar player. And so we talk about that, we talk about pedals, we talk about gear, we talk about his sort of simplistic approach to tone and just kind of using the basics to get what he needs, and also about touring and what that looks like now for him and how he sort of pivoted to his home studio as kind of being the place for creativity and making new music. And so without further delay, I bring you James DePrato. All right, we're live with James DePrato.
Is there going to be like intro music or something?
I mean, yeah, I was hoping that you'd play a little something for us acoustically.
Anyway,
give us like a Brian Setzer sort of opening.
Sure.
I think that's what we need. It totally gated you out.
Of course it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I played this really great lick that I stole from one of the Marx Brothers, where he's like running through a house. I don't even remember which movie this is in, but he's like running through a house. There's some angry husband chasing him. Yeah. And there's a guitar leaning somewhere. He just grabs it, picks it up, and plays this like little vaudeville kind of lick, and then puts it down and runs away.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, it's great to see you, at least virtually. I feel like it's probably been a few months since I've seen you in person.
It's been a few months since I've seen anybody in person.
Yeah. I think you came over to the house. I can't remember the reason that you were here, but you were over here for something.
I think we did a demo that got corrupted by Pro Tools somehow and never came out. Well, we had a good time. I think our dogs got to hang out together, and
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember we recorded a little something. Couldn't the mics, because we're running Pro Tools in my office here, and then I think we were out in the garage doing something. It was just like
It got weird.
too much heat for the.
What happens when you work alone, man?
Yeah,
Things can go wrong.
so I need one of those SM7s on the guitars. They can just take so much SPL, you can just screw it up.
You can pound them, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's new in the Mason world, man? I don't see it so much since you don't live in my town anymore.
Yeah. For those who don't know, James is the pride of Point Richmond, California.
And we met in sort of an unprofessional kind of way. We were like dudes that lived in the same town. And I found out that there was you were a pedal guy, and you found out that there was a guitar player in your town, and we started hanging out.
Well, I actually, I knew you from when you used to work at Guitar Center.
Oh, when I was a wee lad, yeah.
Yeah, so I remember.
Oh yeah, you told me that maybe I even sold you a guitar when I was 19 or something.
Yeah, you sold me a used Eric Clapton Strat.
Oh.
And I remember this was maybe what year did you start working at Guitar Center?
Well, I moved to the Bay Area from Southern California when I was 19 years old. I don't know, that was 1999 or something.
Yeah, I was going to say it was 1999.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 1999. It was Guitar Center in El Cerrito, which is the nearest Guitar Center to where I lived. And there was a red Eric Clapton, Torino red Eric Clapton Strat with lace sensor pickups. And I remember when I got there, I'd convinced my parents, I'd saved up some money, and they were going to help me buy a Strat, American Strat for my birthday, because I had a Squire or something like that before. And there's a guy named Palmer who also worked there.
I still talk to Palmer every now and again.
Does he still work at Guitar Center?
No, I don't think so. I don't think anybody works there anymore. Didn't that place just get taken apart?
Yeah, the one in Emeryville is just got obliterated.
Outrageous, man.
It's clean.
Yeah. Like a turkey carcass, man.
Yeah, it really is. I saw some pictures of it on Facebook. I couldn't believe it.
Unreal.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I saw Palmer was playing this Strat, and I remember it was just it was the used price of a Clapton Strat at this time was about the same price of a new American Strat. It was $800 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember you sold me that guitar and a Crate 112.
Now you're playing with power, my friend.
The one that had kind of like a Cadillac, looking gold emblem on the front.
Oh yeah, I think I stand by that today. Those are pretty cool. As far as crates go, that was the coolest amp they ever made, right?
Yeah. So you sold me those. And then, I remember trying to think of how we crossed paths. I feel like when I moved to Point Richmond in the early 2000s, this would have been mid 2000s, 2007, after I graduated from college, I'd actually looked you up for guitar lessons because somebody had told me, oh yeah, James DePrato, he lives in Point Richmond. I think he gives guitar lessons sometimes out of his house or something like that. And so I couldn't find you on Facebook. I think at the time in 2007, Facebook, you had to be a college student in order to have it. So I don't think it was like it is now. I think I looked you up on MySpace.
Wow, that's a lifetime ago, man.
Yeah. I looked you up on MySpace, and I think I sent you a message and said, hey man, are you...
Did I reply or what?
I don't remember. I mean, I didn't end up taking guitar lessons from you, so either you didn't reply or,
Well,
or
by now you probably know both of my licks anyway.
But then I remember that we ran into each other in town, and I didn't know that I think I ran into you at the Baltic or something like that, because they used to do those jam nights down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I dropped in on one of your jam nights.
Yeah.
We had some fun, yeah.
Yeah, it was good, you get there and you get these guys that were calling out the keys. Remember, there's that one guy who would always say, this one's in the C of G.
When I moved to this town, I thought like this is a little town with one bar, and there were great shows happening, and I used to like drag my amp down there and sit in with people. And I was like, within 6 months, I'm gonna be the mayor of this town. Everyone's gonna know me. I'm gonna be jamming with everybody and all this stuff. And then I got a road gig, and like nobody knows me in this town still. I'm like never here, you know.
Well, I remember every time you do show up to, you know, in the old days when I lived there, and you'd show up to a jam or something like that. People were like, "Oh man, that guy's good. He should, you know,
That guy should be like a guitar player or something." Well, he kind of is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the place that I think everybody knows you from is that, you know, you're sort of like the behind the scenes YouTube royalty, because you're the face, or as you call it, the fingers of every Dunlop pedal demo that's out there, or MXR, or you know, the affiliated sister companies. How did you get into doing those demos for Dunlop to begin with? Because I mean, like every one of those, as long as I can remember, you've been the guy who's been playing the guitar and shredding on all those Dunlop videos.
I wish the story was more interesting, but I had a friend who was working at Dunlop and said, "Come over and I'll show you around the place sometime." And I went over there and I was like, I've been like sniffing Dunlop catalogs since I was a kid. I've been using Dunlop picks my whole life, Dunlop slides my whole life. I've always loved that company. Like a picture of like the family owned like American company that I've always thought they were great. And I just sat down with like some dude over there, it might have been Brian Kehoe. And I told him, like, if you guys ever need like a demo guy, I'd love to do a demo for you guys. And then like 10 years later, I've been doing them the whole time. And I keep thinking that maybe it's the kind of thing I'm going to age out of. Like, I'm not a young dude anymore. I'm 40 years old. But, you know, they don't really show my face. They just show these crooked ass fingers and this beat up old yellow telly. And I've been on gigs before where people come up and they're like, I know that guitar. Nobody really knows who the guy is, but the guitar gets recognized.
You need to get like some distinguishing like finger characteristics so people can really like make it stand out. Like
I need to cut one of them off or something.
Tattoos.
I don't really use my pinky very much. I don't even know if I'd miss it.
Well, how long was it between the time that you took that tour and then they called you to actually do a video?
Maybe like a month later or something.
What was the first one that you did for them? Do you remember?
Yeah, the first one I did was for the custom comp. It was like their custom shop.
Yeah, it was white, right? With red
that's
writing.
The one. And we did it with a green screen, so it kind of looked like I was floating in space, and there was digital, like, kind of Tron World crap floating behind me.
Yeah.
And Brian Kehoe with his big old voice was the voiceover guy. And then they changed their format to, like, really intimate thing where they just kind of follow my hands around with a camera. And we've tried a million different formats. And my favorite thing about those that I take into every gear demo I do is that I don't have to speak in them. I was on another shoot and a guy handed me a script. He's like, "You're gonna read this script?" I'm like, "No, I am not."
I wanted to see if we could play the. I think this is the video here.
Sweet little cutaway.
Isn't this it?
This is it. Yeah. There's like a schematic floating around behind me, and
was it the actual schematic of the pedal?
I have no idea.
I kind of vaguely remember these, Brian Kehoe. Yeah. And they put a green screen. I want to see where you are. Oh, there he is. There's old James. Let's see.
They're like, play a country leg.
What guitar was that?
I don't know. That might have been a Nash or something. A lot of the times I go down there and they have
it's one of their. Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
But
So
they always tell me to bring the yellow telly no matter what.
Yeah, I remember there was some. I don't know. This is probably, I don't know, close to 10 years ago. Where you using like a Lone Star and I think they had some Mesa Boogie stuff there.
I don't even know, man. So much stuff flies through there. I think they have deals with so many companies and they have gear everywhere. So
right,
they're like, these guys have been good to us. We want to use their amp in a video.
What video with them would you say you're most proud of?
Well, have you seen the MXR digital reverb pedal?
Oh yeah.
They put everything in that, man. And we've shot it on location in like 5 different locations, and in my mind, I was like, are people really going to watch a video that's this long and this involved? Is it going to be lost on people who just want to like hear what a pedal sounds like? But I don't know. I think it was a big hit. I think they even like won a couple awards. I don't know what awards. I don't know where, but somewhere.
Yeah, it's this one. Here we bring it up. They won a Peabody for it, huh?
That's right. Maybe even a BAFTA.
Let's see. Oh yeah.
That's at the Dunlop bunker.
Okay. Yeah, their Quonset hut.
Yep. Fantasy Studios. Oh, shot on the beach in Alameda.
Yeah. Yeah. Where was this?
Who says rock and rollers can't look fly in a cardigan too? This was at an airplane hangar right by Oakland Airport. It's like a vintage airplane museum.
Wow. Wow.
Where are we at now?
You still the airplane hangar?
I guess so.
And then it kind of ends at the beach, right?
On this like perfect night in Oakland, this perfect sunset. Yeah, it worked out pretty cool.
Yeah, well, 2 million views later, they did pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good for a gear
I'm so
video.
Rich.
So do you compose all those tracks and stuff like that for those videos, or do they have something that's sort of like preset for you to just kind of come in and do?
It's important to me to have like music to play
You know?
instead of just sitting around like wandering around on the guitar. So yeah, I put a little time into having like little songs to play and little pieces that have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not like one of those guitar players that's gonna shred your face off all night long. Really, I try to think of myself as like a part writer or you know, just, I try to be a musical guitar player and not just a guitar player.
So more of like a Malmsteen type.
Yeah, exactly.
Guy's just, he plays for the song.
He plays from the heart, man. His parts they're easy melodies to grab onto. Yeah, if you slow your record player down. And people ask me all the time about this guitar. They're like, what is that guitar? Like, what kind of pickups are in it? I've literally never changed a thing on this guitar. Unless something wears out.
Except taking stuff off of it.
Yeah. I like the original pickups. They seem fine. I don't know. Maybe they
have you refretted it or anything?
I did have it refretted one time, and I recently had to put different tuning keys on it because the original ones were getting kind of wobbly. There's no way that I know of to fix those Kluson tuning keys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not that expensive of a change anyway if you had to do it. I mean, it's probably way cheaper than a fret job or anything like that.
Through that.
So how did you get into playing professional guitar? Like, what was your first paid gig as a guitar player?
Oh God. I don't know if I've been paid anything yet. I don't know. I guess I'm like a product of the MTV generation. I saw guys on MTV playing guitar, and just I couldn't imagine anybody on planet Earth having more fun than those guys were having. I was like, how do I do that for a living? And so I don't know. Got a guitar, learned a couple things, and then I guess I showed a little promise at a pretty early age. So what all happened? I started playing in a band when I was like 11 years old with like 35-year-old potheads, and it was pretty cool to get to go like play nightclubs and see what that was all about.
Yeah.
And I guess like one major turning point was I grew up in the LA area, and there was L.A. radio played a lot of like you would actually hear like Joe Satriani on the radio,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
instrumental guitar guys would actually get radio play back then when I was like 11 or 12. But there was a guy named Mark Bonilla who's actually a Bay Area guy who's since moved to L.A. But he had a song in rotation on L.A. radio on KLOS, and I was really into it. And he was a shredding guitar player. And he was on a local radio show called Mark and Brian. They were kind of big if you lived in LA. And I used to call in all the time because I was homeschooled because I knew that I wasn't going to be like the other kids in my town. I just wanted to go hang out with 35-year-old potheads and play gigs in weird nightclubs. And anyway, so I was homeschooled, so I called into this radio station to ask Mark Bonilla a really dumb question. And they heard my little squeaky voice. And
do you remember what you said?
I think I just wanted to know who his influences were, something. But he talked to me, and they're like, "Why do you care, kid?" You know, they hear my little squeaky voice. They're like, "Do you play guitar?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Get your guitar and play something for us." So I picked up my guitar and played some whatever Jimmy Page lick I'd learned. And they're like, "Wow, you guys should jam together over the airwaves." So Mark Bonilla and I had like a blues jam over the airwaves, and I soloed. And
how was the delay at that time?
I don't know. As horrific as my time probably was back then, it probably corrected it. But it's not much better now, by the way. But so they invited me down to the station like a week later, and Mark Bonilla, who was a Yamaha endorsee at the time, they gave me this really nice Yamaha 921 guitar, and then Mark Bonilla asked me to play on his upcoming record. And I guess that was a bigger deal back in the early 90s or something because like he was on like a major label, you know?
Right, and you were how old, 11?
11 or 12 or something at the time.
Yeah.
So I played on his second record, and then, I guess that's the sort of thing that kind of makes you feel like I can do this if I keep doing it, you know?
Yeah.
And then that's when things started to fall in place. Like I went to my first NAMM show, and I got an endorsement. And then after I got one, I got a few, you know, because I was like this 12-year-old kid who'd played guitar on a record that was out on Warner Brothers or whatever.
Yeah.
So to make a short story long, yeah.
So what had you move up to the Bay Area?
I was playing in like a hippie rock band, like this kind of this freaky jam band, and we were touring up and down the coast, and we just had a following up here that we gained kind of quickly, much quicker than we could gain one down in our Riverside area where I was growing up. So we just moved up here, and then about 6 months later, the band imploded, and I just kind of stayed.
And then that's when you started working at Guitar Center?
Yeah, I'd never even like attempted to be an adult before, and I didn't have like a dream to work at a guitar shop. But I literally moved into a house with a bunch of friends, and Guitar Center was 2 blocks away. So I was like, I'll go to the nearest business and apply for a job.
Well, I remember in 1999, a 19-year-old with because you had a sleeve tattoo.
Then?
I think so.
I don't even have one of those now.
Don't you have like a partial sleeve tattoo?
Yeah. Yeah, I got a little something.
Yeah, but I mean, in 1999, there weren't a lot of 19-year-olds with tattoos.
I don't know if I had that many tattoos back then. I might have, but...
You definitely had some. I remember that.
Maybe so. A good friend of mine who I met at the guitar shop also is a tattoo guy local in town, and he's also a filmmaker. I did a score for one of his indie films that he made.
Nice. So what was sort of the next thing? You're working at Guitar Center. I remember because I'd go there with some regularity, because that was really like one of the few guitar, like they had like a lot of stuff. At the time, Guitar Center in the 90s and in early 2000s actually like had a lot of stuff. Like we had some pretty decent stuff. You had some, PRS and Custom Shop and, the Mesa Boogie dual rectifier. Everybody had to have those.
Oh yeah, man! Standard issue, right? Yeah,
it's the only place you could get them. Yeah, CE. You wanted a CE22 and a dual rectifier to get the Limp Bizkit tone or the Third Eye Blind tone. You needed those. Those instruments. But what was like the next thing you got onto after the hippie band dissolved?
Well, I mean, I had been playing with bands and kind of digging into being a sideman all along, and then I decided I'd had enough humiliation working at a guitar shop. And I don't know, I started getting road gigs and touring here and there, and actually started getting on airplanes to go to gigs for the first time. And then I don't know. Just like a musician has to do to make a living, you really got to spread your hustle. It's not
Yeah.
one thing that's going to pay the bills. It's like any number of 15 things at a time. So I taught some lessons. I was doing session work. I was doing sideband stuff. Uh, Probably still working a job somewhere. But then in 2007, I tried out for Chuck Prophet's band. I'm still in Chuck Prophet's band, and we tour like mad. We're supposed to be in Europe right now, but nobody's
Right.
doing anything right now.
What did that look like? Was that an audition sort of thing, or did he just know about you and just invited you into the band, or how did that work?
My wife was a fan, and she's like, "I'm gonna go see this guy Chuck Prophet. He's playing here in town. You should come." And I think I had a gig or something. I couldn't make it. I was like, "I think I know the bass player though. Tell the bass player I said hello." And she went and she saw the show, and it was great. She brought me back a copy of his record called Homemade Blood, and I listened to it. I was like, this dude's really good. Great guitar player. I didn't even know for sure if it was him that was playing the guitar, but I was like,
Right.
"There's some great guitar work on this record. Guy's got a cool, heavy voice, a bunch of great songs." And then about 3 weeks after that, I got a call from the bass player. He's like, "Hey, I ran into your girlfriend at my show, and we're looking for a guitar player." So I knew very little about Chuck at the time. I didn't know that he was really famous for playing one guitar his entire career, a yellow Telecaster.
Yeah.
So I showed up at the audition with my yellow Telecaster, and I played some lap steel and I played some Telecaster, and he called me up the next day and he was like, "Yeah, you got the gig, but you can't play that guitar. We can't have like two of the same guitar." So to this day, I'm still trying to figure out what the next best guitar is to use on that tour, because I've never played a single show with my yellow Telly on a Chuck Prophet gig. Because he still
Dang.
plays that same yellow Telly. So I've tried everything. I'm always like, I'll try Les Paul for a tour, an SG for a tour, other
You
weird Telecasters that aren't yellow or this
bring
one.
that, bring that Korean Strat that you got.
I've been touring with that Korean Strat. I've never been happier, man.
Yeah. All those Clapton licks you learned as a kid are finally paying off.
Right. Apparently, huh? I'm sorry. I'm looking over here at my Korean Strat hanging on the wall. I
It
was on a
actually was
tour.
surprisingly good.
I was on a tour with a different guy, this guy Tim Bloom, and the bass
Oh, yeah.
player was this dude from Nashville, and he's a gear nut. I'm just kind of like I'm like a self-loathing gear nut. I'm kind of like, I'm as bored by conversations about gear as I am secretly like always hunting for something new. But he was like, "You know what you need to find, man?" He's like, there's a certain year of this certain serial number of Korean-made Stratocasters. They're dirt cheap, and you can find them easily. They're like $200, and they're great. Like, I've had a lot of my friends. I recommend them to friends. They've all bought them. They all love them. So like 10 minutes later, I just bought one on reverb on my phone in the back of the van, and yeah, I've replaced almost everything on it. But it's kind of a perfect guitar because it's really easy to play. Makes me really happy. And if I just lost it at an airport, I'd be like, I'll just go get another one.
Yeah. Yeah, but it has EMGs in it, doesn't it?
It does.
What are you
Because
gonna do?
I don't know how to wire in a complicated set of pickups by myself, and so I bought one of those pick guards that's pre-wired. And I got to tell you, EMGs, they get a bad rap. These things sound great, man.
Do you sound just like an old school, like Steve Lukather or like Lee Ritenour?
Yeah,
all
exactly
those guys?
like that.
You sound just like Steve Lukather.
I
Yeah.
don't know, they're pretty cool. I mean, I like that you can kind of reach down and just like turn up the gain a little bit too.
Yeah.
I've never used
actually
active pickups
surprised.
before this, but I like them all right.
I was surprised by it. You brought it here. I thought it sounded pretty good. It played pretty good. I thought it was, certainly better than a lot of the American standard Fenders that, you'd get in the 90s when I was buying those guitars.
What's up with Fender? Are they keeping their quality control up? I don't play a lot of new guitars.
Yeah, I think so. I think of the big commercial brands, they certainly are doing a great job. I think comparatively to, some of the other sort of household names, Gibson's kind of struggled to maintain that. But I think Fender's making some of the best guitars they've ever made.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I sound like an old guy right now, but I'm really blown away by how much a standard Strat is now. Like,
Yeah,
almost
how much
like
is a standard
1400
Strat?
They're like $1,400 brand new or something,
Yeah.
right?
It's not like in 1999 where you get one for $800.
Right. You can get a used one for like $400 or something.
I think a Stevie Ray Vaughan Strat at that time, which was like the next guitar I got, I think that those were like 11 or 1200.
And what are those now?
I think they're more like 18 or maybe more. I don't know.
Outrageous.
I don't know. I guess it's got to be more than an American.
I guess so.
Maybe so.
Can you really be more than American? I don't know what I'm saying.
No, those are great though. I think Stevie Ray Vaughan strats, honestly, everyone that I've ever played was pretty good. They all seemed like they sounded good. You know, you had to get over the SRV on the pickguard. I always changed. I've had a couple of them, and I've always changed it to tortoiseshell pickguard. But they're really all pretty good strats.
Austin, Texas, man. And they know a thing or two about Stratocasters out there.
Yeah, they do. Or, you know, if you're David Grissom, you just get your PRS.
Is that what he still uses?
I think for the most part, he does have a Strat, though. I guess he said when I interviewed him, he said when he moved to Austin, he had a Fiesta Red Strat from '61.
Oh.
But he kind of wanted to get away from it because that was sort of like the Austin sound at the time. Everybody was using Strats, you know. That was in the mid '80s, so of course you couldn't go anywhere without, you know, having the Stevie Ray Vaughan shadow looming over you if you were playing a Strat and a Fender.
Austin, Texas is the only place in the world I've ever been where you can play guitar on stage, on any stage, as loud as you feel like it. It's just such a guitar town. Like, a lot of times I tour with Little Fender Princeton, and people tell me to turn down constantly. But in Austin, Texas, you can have a wall of Marshalls. You can have anything you want. Just people are just so happy to hear guitar there.
So might be the town for you, James, when you go into retirement.
I don't really like to play guitar that loud. I like nice little musical situations, but every time I play there in Austin, Texas with Chuck Prophet, he plays so unbelievably loud. I have to like gear up from my Austin gig so I can like be heard. And he uses he's got a 64 deluxe reverb. It sounds amazing, and it's loud. It's not just loud, it's loud in every direction. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
How incredibly loud that thing is. He turns it up to 5, and it's just like, it's as loud over there as it is over there, as it is in the front and the back.
Chuck is pretty funny, actually. I think you gave him my number once.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, maybe I could get excited about like a new pedal board.
Yeah. You remember what he said to me? I think I called you after.
No, what did he say?
So he called me and he's like, you know, he's kind of talking about, he kind of went on this monologue for a while about, you know, his equipment and stuff like that and what he used. And then I like asked him a couple of sort of guiding questions to kind of figure out, well, like, what direction does he want to take this? So I gave him like the option of like, okay, well, we could do it, you know, really straight ahead, just like, you know, one pedal into the next, or we could use some sort of switcher, you know, where you could click a button and bring in multiple effects at once that you could program to your set list.
I could already feel him tuning out when you...
And he's like, you know, you're talking like a jazz guy. He's like, jazz guys take something simple and make it complicated. I need you to talk to me more like a rock guy. Rock guys take something complicated and they make it simple. You know?
Right. Well, I don't know how many guys you make pedal boards for that are also singers. You know, when you're fronting a band, you're up there jumping up and down and singing at the top of your lungs. You don't have time to look down or think or look at a pedal that's spelling shit at you. You just have to know that there's a pedal right where you think it is, and you just go for it, and it happens, you know? And he's not a big pedal guy. Like, I don't think he's added a pedal to his pedal board since I've known him. He still uses an old Rat pedal. For one song, the settings are duct taped down. He just locked it in one day, and that was it forever.
He needs one of those Danny Gatton Dingus boxes so he can do it all from the guitar. You know, he just presses the buttons right here.
I'd be into that. I want you to invent something for me. I want to have a little kickstand on my pedal board that has one delay pedal on it. That's just where I can reach it at a gig. I like to play like my delay pedal like a synthesizer.
Just have a music stand.
Well, that's not sexy. I want like a thing that's part of my deal that just stands up, whoop, and it's right there. It's perfect height.
I've seen guys.
You know how many goddamn music stands I have in my house? Every time someone comes over to play music with me, I make them take one.
Do you?
I don't even know where those things come from. I don't use those things.
It's like a school, like music classroom or something like that. There's just music stands everywhere.
Yeah, with like school names stenciled on the backs of them.
Yeah.
Those things are just, I call them snow shovels.
Yeah. Well, there's the good ones, right? That look like snow shovels, and then there's the really sort of wiry ones that you can never like completely set up right, and you're always chasing, musical pages down, outside when you're at a gig and you're trying to
that
clip
sounds
the
like a
sheet
nightmare.
music.
I wouldn't know because I vow to never have a music stand on stage. One of the things you get when you hire James DePrato. No, just kidding. Really, I feel like
He's
you're
allergic
either,
to sheet music.
for me, I feel like you're either reading music. Personally, I'm either reading music or playing music. I don't know if I'm ever really doing both. So I'd rather just be playing music, given the
Yeah.
choice. So I'd rather put the time in and just have the songs kind of in my body.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you on that. So what about gear, James DePrato? You certainly, you've demoed most of the MXR and Dunlop pedals ever made in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're sort of as you mentioned, sort of a closeted gear collector.
Sort of.
What are some of James DePrato's picks? Do you have any sleeper pieces of gear that you think that people should know about that don't know, that's not getting the love and respect it deserves?
Oh, well, I don't know. I feel so many ways about gear. Like I say, there's a part of me that kind of doesn't ever really want to talk about it because I'd rather just talk about the music, Holmes. But yeah, gear's a funny thing. Sometimes I think I'm always in pursuit of a piece of gear because maybe I'm kind of mad at my own guitar playing or something. Somehow it's going to make me re-engage and practice harder or find something I never could find before. But I'm learning that especially in light of this whole pandemic thing, I really just I have a Fender Champ, and if I put a mic on it and I have an overdrive that I like it's going to come out of the speakers sounding pretty cool generally. But specifically, there's some pieces of gear that there's some pedals that live on my board. I tried to take them off, and they always find their way back on. And one is the Strymon Timeline. The thing, even though I don't think it's a very user-friendly pedal, I've gotten lost in it on stage where it's spelling stuff at me, and I don't know where I am or how to get out of it, and my delays are going backwards in the middle of a song. But I think it sounds great, and it's super reliable sound, and it just kind of does everything. And the other one, this little guy, this little Earthquaker Bit Commander.
Yeah.
A lot of the times I do sessions and people ask for it by name. They're like, bring that little gray pedal. But it not only does it do the kind of synthy stuff, that analog synth thing really well, but it's kind of like a really unknown, really great fuzz pedal if you turn the octaves off, or maybe just turn the high octave up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a bit of perfection. I use the crap out of that thing. So what else? I should talk about Koch amplifiers.
Yeah.
Who I endorse. I think they make good products. I've had their twin tone, which is right behind me here. I've probably played 500 gigs with it and haven't been able to break it yet. And then I just recently acquired their new their Greg Koch signature amp.
Yeah.
Which is a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, it's got so many features, it's crazy. But I've kind of I've bonded with it, and I've been doing a lot of home recording. I've been doing only home recording since this whole thing broke out. And I'm having such a great time playing with this thing. It's a 50-watt EL34 powered amp. It's got tremolo, and it's got harmonic tremolo, which is a hell of a lot of fun. What else does it do? It's got some kind of weird fuzz channel built into it that just sounds so good. When I first got it, I didn't know if I was going to bond with it, but I'm totally into this thing. I'm really sad that I haven't gotten to play a gig with it yet.
What about overdrive pedals? What are you gravitating towards these days?
I'm really into exotic pedals. That SL drive, I think, is really great.
Yeah.
And I also toured quite a bit with that Osnoy signature pedal. I forget what it's called. It's purple.
Oh, yeah. It's like an AC booster with an RC booster in one, I think.
Totally great. Yeah. I don't know. Overdrive pedals are weird. I can never seem to get one to last for longer than a tour or two. I always seem to be looking for something else.
What about boosts? What do you like?
I don't really use one. I just kind of feel like my basic tone philosophy is I kind of like dirty cleans and clean dirties. So I never need a really sparkly clean sound for anything I ever do. And I don't ever need heavy metal overdrive. So in general, I'll just kind of turn my amp up to where it needs to be at the show, and then turn it up a little bit more, and then
Do you
just
ever
kind of use my volume pedal or my volume knob, get me up and over, or
do
turn
you
on
ever,
another pedal. I don't know.
do you
I don't
ever use
really.
compressors?
They don't. They just don't work on stage for me. But definitely, I never go to a recording session without one. They're really valuable for recording. But I don't understand how to use one on stage. You're gonna have to teach me. This makes things kind of inaudible somehow. Has
Huh.
anybody ever said that to you?
Well, I guess what's the compressor that you use?
I've tried them all, man. I don't know. Mostly MXR compressors. I think I've probably had a couple other oddball ones, but I don't know.
What about modulation stuff?
My go-to modulation pedal is a pitch vibrato, and I've tried a few of those too. And my current favorite one is in that pedal. I think I bought it from you. That Boss MS3.
Oh yeah. The
It's a
MIDI program.
switcher pedal, but that's another pedal that has stayed on the board for many tours. It passed the audition. I really love that thing. I think that just for the pitch vibrato alone and the switching stuff, that thing is more than paid for itself.
Nice, nice. What
What about?
about any other modulation stuff?
Mm,
You're a big chorus guy.
yeah, I got a couple Dunlop analog choruses that I kind of use like a Leslie pedal, turn the speed all
Okay.
the way up, and I don't really
And
like live on them though. They're kind of nice for this or that.
in delay, you have the timeline. What about
Oh yeah,
reverb?
and the other thing that is always on is the MXR, the what's that thing called? The MXR Echoplex delay.
Oh, nice. Those
I
are
love
great.
that thing. It's so great. I like being able to like dirty the tape up if I want to make something really raunchy sounding. But that thing's always on. I always play guitar with a slap back on. Just
Yeah.
I like what it does. Makes things a
And,
little more 3D.
and you'll put a timeline on top of that.
Absolutely.
What about for reverb?
Reverb, I generally amp reverb, but
Okay.
of course the other one that lives on the board is the MXR reverb. I think it's really fantastic
Yeah.
sounding pedal. I like their Epic setting a lot. I use that a lot.
What about any? Do you use any fuzzes other than the bit commander in the, with just the high octave
I've
turned up a
tried a
little bit?
few, but they kind of have the same effect that compressors do. They kind of make things inaudible on stage. You rock it out on stage, you step on a fuzz, then all of a sudden there's no sound. You're gonna have to give me a lesson in how to actually use a fuzz pedal on stage.
Well, they can be pretty scooped out. I mean, most of the guys that really famously used fuzzes and stuff like that, they were in like 3-piece bands.
Right.
Think about it.
Yeah, you
Hendrix
can
didn't
have a
really
really
have a lot of
squishy
things
sound when you're by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, because think about it. Yeah, like Jimi Hendrix, it was a trio. He wasn't competing with that frequency with anybody else.
But he also had like 50 amps behind him, right?
He did, and the Marshalls had some mid range to him for sure. But yeah, those old fuzz faces, man, they were super scooped out.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know
sometimes
how to use them on stage.
Yeah, sometimes even watching Eric Johnson in certain rooms, and he goes for the fuzz. There's an audible drop in the sound.
What a bummer, man. You only want to go up. You never want to go down. But that's why that bit commander is like my secret weapon, because it does work really well on stage. I think it's because you can blend your dry sound in with it too.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people dig that one. I've never dug into it. I mean, I've put it on boards, but only like for the purposes of like testing it and, making sure that it's, passing the signal properly, but I never really got into it for like a leisure sort of thing. So
It's a leisure pedal.
yeah.
You're a gentleman of leisure. You'd be using a pedal of leisure by
Just
now.
put on your smoke jacket and break out your bit commander.
Right.
So what do we do, James, now with the COVID stuff? What's the James DePrato approach to being a sideman and not being able to play live gigs? What do you think is like? What do you think the future looks like? What do you think what's the DePrato approach to this?
I've got some thoughts about it for sure. Number one, like most people are very much missing live music. There's a part of me that's kind of a little bit happy to have a break. Haven't really had a break from live music in like 25 years. and it's kind of forcing me to learn other things. Like before all this happened, I kind of thought of myself as a casual home recorder, but now like I have to do this. I really am making all of whatever income I make recording stuff at home, and I kind of don't want to go back. I think about how like maybe a year ago I'd load up like 8 guitars in the back of my truck and 4 amps, suitcase full of pedals, and go load all that stuff in, load it all back out. But at home, everything's turnkey. I can reach up and grab a guitar, and I'm kind of having a pretty good time, actually. I'm looking forward to being places again because I am kind of addicted to the travel part. And so I've kind of considered this to be like sort of government subsidized, like recording school. And I still wouldn't say I'm an expert. I use Logic because for me, it's kind of easy to get a song up and running quickly.
Yeah,
like
there's a lot of guys
drums.
that still use Logic. Logic's fine.
Totally. All the like keyboards, synthesizer sounds are just right there, and I love it. As far as the future goes, I really don't know. I keep seeing these articles about 90% of the venues are going to close, and that just breaks my heart, man. I feel like me and, people like me, we've spent a lot of time working our way to just being able to live in the fun zone, and I just see the fun zone kind of dying, and it really bums me out. It scares me. But so I guess there's two possible scenarios. One is that the music business as we knew it kind of melts away, and that's really sad to think. Well, the other thing is like maybe there's going to be like this kind of summer of love where people have been missing culture and music so badly that they're just dying to be out. I'm going to go to every show. I'm never going to miss a show again,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm certainly hoping for the latter,
Aren't we all?
You guys can have the Woodstock right there in Point Richmond, California.
That's right. Dipstock, we're going to call it.
He'll be right there at the dog park.
That's funny. You know this little town, man.
Yeah.
This town's like an episode of The Simpsons. Every day when I go out to walk the dog, I see the same people doing the same stuff. I kind of like that. That's about how urban I like to live. I like to be able to like walk to the top of the hill and see the city. There's a city right over there. I can go there if I want to. But
are you still in the same place you've always been in?
Yeah. And I've got this basement which you've been in, and since things have been slow, I spend so many hours down here now, just hunched over a mouse with a guitar on my lap. I just look around like this place is disgusting. So I've been painting walls and moving stuff around, and actually, finally for the first time ever, fixing up the joint.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's sort of you had a kind of a perfect little space to make that happen in that house.
I think it's something I've always been able to divine for myself, is being able to live in places where I can make loud music, even though a lot of people move into apartments and they're like, if I even play an acoustic guitar, my neighbor will complain. But I've kind of got this kind of subterranean basement deal going on, and I can play guitar so loud. I have band rehearsals down here sometimes. I can't really push my luck. I can't do it for like many hours straight.
Right.
But my upstairs neighbor, he just passed away recently, but he was like 87 years old, deaf as a stump, never complained once. And then this is a fourplex that I live in, so the neighbors on the back end of the building are divided by a brick wall. They can't hear a thing. My next door neighbors are like, I play the drums, so I like hearing the music. So I'm so lucky that I get away with so much here.
Yeah. That's great. It's cool that you're getting into the recording side. Maybe I'm gonna have to, have you record an intro for the Rig Doctor.
Yeah, let me write a jingle for you, man.
We need it to be like 80s, like White Snake style.
Done, man.
How's your David Coverdale?
My David Coverdale is not good.
We can have your wife sing it.
I've heard that yours is pretty good, though.
Only my fashion.
Shirt open.
Yeah.
I saw you on the hood of your car the other day, writhing around.
Yeah.
Writhing around to a John Sykes guitar solo.
That's right.
What's new with you, man? What have you invented lately? Well,
we got a lot of stuff kind of coming down the pipeline, and the newest one that we can talk about is we're coming out with a line of pedal boards.
Oh.
So kind of based on a lot of the stuff that we do on the YouTube channel around teaching and doing enrichment for people to sort of learn the best practices to build their own professional level pedal board. And the second component of that unrelated to pedal boards is we had released this battery power supply a couple years ago when I was still living in Point Richmond. In fact,
I think I remember that. Yeah,
where you could power up to 4 pedals off of individual batteries inside of power supplies. From the outside, it kind of just looked like a regular pedal power.
It's kind of beautifully primitive yet totally cool.
Yeah. And then you could take a feed from your power supply. So when you turned on your whole pedal board, powered it on, it would power on the batteries. And then when you unplug the pedal board, it would turn off the batteries. So you wouldn't need to unplug anything. But, we sold 1,000 of them, and it was really hard. Those last maybe 200 or 300 units of that 1,000 were really slow to move. Like we sold the first maybe 700 or 800 in the first 6 weeks. And then it was like really slow going, and it felt like, this was a cool idea, but we really sort of hit the ceiling as far as people that were really interested in trying this thing out, at 1,000 units. So I discontinued it and never made it again. However, since we discontinued it, all these people coming out of the woodwork trying to get those again, and they're going for like big money now on reverb because there's not really. Dan Electro makes a version of it, but they're not. I think they're all together. Like all 4 of them are just are tied together in parallel. So they're all in parallel, and so you just get like the current of 4 batteries, and then they just have their own individual outlets. Whereas on ours, there was just an isolated thing. And I think that there were some guys that did some modifications to make it like ours. There was a guy called Jesse Davey. His company's called Kingtone. And he would do a mod to the Dan Electro so you could put a power input on it and had like an on-off toggle. And so there's people that were coming out with stuff that kind of filled the void. And then we started having like guys like Andy Timmons buy it and be like, yeah, this thing's really great. So I was like, okay, now we might need to bring this thing back. And so I brought it back, and it's coming back out in a couple of weeks. And so it'll have the original way where you can power it off 9-volt DC in to have the pedal board, determine whether it's on and off. Or you could just use it as a standalone thing. And there's a toggle where you can manually turn off the batteries if you don't want to use a power supply that feeds it to tell it when to turn on and off.
What is the upside of using a battery? I feel like my whole life I've been wondering if there was a way to never have to use batteries again, but...
Well, it's only a benefit on certain types of effects. So only like vintage fuzzes and certain vintage overdrives and vintage wahs and stuff like that. It's not an across the board sort of thing. And typically it's only carbon batteries as well. So, if you're using an Energizer or a Duracell or a nice quality alkaline battery, that pretty much from the pedal standpoint looks about the same as a power supply because it's very linear. It delivers the voltage consistently up until the point that the battery dies. So if you were to look at the power supply, 9.6 volts on a graph just stays 9.6 all the way across. And on a battery at alkaline, it looks about the same. And then at the very end of its life, it just dies. But if you look at a carbon battery, it starts at 9.6 and immediately starts to dwindle. So
there's a couple sweet spots in there or something.
So it just continues to decay, and then there's this interactiveness when you have high impedance sources like a carbon battery, and you have these high impedance pedals like fuzz face or something like that. There's this interplay where there's this current limiting going on at the same time where the voltage is reducing. And if you were to put a meter on the battery, the power source, and you were to, let's say, slam the input of your fuzz face, you'd actually see the voltage drop and then regenerate. And so, and you'd also see the current limiting occurring as well at the same time. So there's this weird sort of interplay that's happening where it's starving the pedal. And there's companies that made things, on their power supplies called sag control, but it only addresses the voltage. But the voltage is variable, so it's like when you hit the pedal, the voltage drops and then comes back. It doesn't just stay at 7 volts or 8 volts or whatever it is. And it doesn't address the current aspect of it either. So it's sort of an incomplete picture simulating a battery with just a static voltage all the time. So it's a cool thing. I mean, it's certainly like a novelty, but so many people, all of our dealers are like, oh, people are asking for this. And I've seen some of them going for like $200 on Reverb. And I think we only charged $100 or $99 for it.
Yeah, because you got to put $100 worth of batteries in it too, right?
Yeah, it's like buying a printer or something like that. The printer's cheap, but you're gonna spend hundreds of dollars every year in ink cartridges. Right. Yeah.
Far out, man.
So it's not our most environmental pedal, I will say that, and own that completely. But if you're going to use batteries anyway, this certainly will preserve the life of them longer because, when you're not using the board, you don't have to remember to turn off your pedal or unplug the input jack or whatever. It automatically
Remember those
kills
days?
it.
Remember when you had like one pedal and you had to remember to unplug it after every jam session?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what
your one pedal was. Mine was the DoD American Metal, and then I think I added a wah-wah pedal at some point.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what I remember. I did have a pedal where you had to do that, and I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was a Rat, actually.
I didn't even own a tuner up until like I played guitar for 10 or 12 years before I finally had a tuner.
What'd
I
you
just
use?
put on Tom Sawyer by Rush. It has that E note that lasts for like 45 seconds.
Oh.
I'd restring my guitar and then put on Tom Sawyer and then tune up to it.
Good thing that was the first song on the record, so you didn't have to skip around.
Right.
Yeah, because I think it is the first song on Moving Pictures, right?
I don't actually know. I probably had like a best of or something. But
Yeah, I think it is. I have the LP now. I didn't have it when I was a kid.
you can't tune your guitar to an LP though, right?
I mean, why not?
Well,
Get that
you want
warble.
to jam along, I guess. Not a whole lot of jamming along you could do on a song that has a 45-second E chord. But
it's well, I mean, it could get you really good at like trying out your modes.
I got to tell you, I was on a shoot with Dunlop the day that Neil Peart died.
Okay.
And like everybody loved that dude. We all love that dude so much. That was like the saddest like musical death. I mean, there's certainly people more famous than him that died, but like I think my wife even shed a tear when he died because I made her watch that documentary, and she's like, I forget what it was called, but that Rush documentary. She's like, I love these guys so much.
Yeah.
Like these guys are such good guys, you know.
Yeah.
And Neil Peart had all that really sad stuff happen in his life. When he died, there was like people on the shoot like texting loved ones and stuff like Neil Peart died.
Dang. Yeah, well, he had some those drum parts, man, even on Tom Sawyer were pretty cool.
Yeah, like when I was like sort of like 12 or 13 years old, like Rush was the band for me. And then I kind of like got too cool for them for about 20 years. And then I saw them in concert maybe 3 years ago. And I could not believe how much fun I had. And I knew every word to every song they played. And I got to say, the most improved guy in the band has to be Alex Lifeson. When I was a kid, I didn't think him compared to other guitar players in the 80s. I thought, he's all right. But I swear that he's been practicing the whole time. He tore the roof off the place, man.
I can't remember who it was that said this. It was like sort of a super backhanded compliment. And man, I can't remember. They're like, oh, we hired this guy in 1980, whatever, and he never got better. Like we hired him because we hired him in 1985 and, he never got better from that time. He stayed exactly the same. That's why we hired him.
That's why it's so cool to be in a band, because you can be like that.
Yeah.
You can sound one way and be in a band. It doesn't even have to be all that good, as long as you sound the way people expect you to sound. But when you're a sideman session guy, you get to be ready to sound like anything and everything. It's kind of hard to develop like an identity in your own playing when people are throwing references at you. Try to sound like this guy or that guy. But I was at a studio. I actually did a session in a studio a couple weekends ago for the first time in a few months. It was weird. There was a lot of hand sanitizer, and I was
What
alone.
studio was it?
I'm not going to give it away because the story I'm going to tell is
Okay.
wrapped up in this. So
Okay.
the engineer, he played me a song off a record he's producing, and like, check it out. And it's got two really famous guitar players trading licks on it. I'm like, oh, yeah, I like those guys. I want to hear that. And he played it for me, and I just kind of bopped along. And when he stopped, he's like, they're pretty bad, aren't they? I'm like, I was thinking it, but I didn't want to say it.
Nice.
He's like, yeah, it just kind of sounds like some friend of yours, like dad playing at a barbecue or something. So I'm saying that to say that these guys are like guys that are in famous bands, maybe they haven't had to add new licks to their repertoire. As long as they can keep on sounding like themselves, then it's all good, man.
Maybe they're just trapped at home and they're still learning Logic,
That could be. I'm gonna have to call them up for some help.
Yeah. Who do you think is the most underrated guitar player, or a few underrated guitar players do you think are really excellent and maybe get put on the back burner?
I think the most underrated guitar players are those Nashville session guys that we don't know their names, who who just blaze on all those country tracks and are amazing. Like, I mean, I don't even, you probably know these guys, you probably know them personally, but like, the guy that plays on, uh, what's the name of that guy? Sean Tubbs.
Oh yeah,
Who does he play with?
Carrie Underwood.
Yeah, like that guy is like, I mean, how good is that guy? Is anybody better at the guitar than that guy? That guy should be really famous, but he's just kind of a dude, probably goes to the grocery store and takes out the trash like anybody.
Eats salad.
Yeah, that's just the only one I could think of his name, but
Yeah.
I'm sure every Nashville artist has the best guitar player you've ever heard and have never heard of.
Yeah. What about like a kind of the more popular band type stuff,
Well, some of my favorite guys are
besides Chad Kroeger.
Does he play the guitar?
Yeah, he's got that PRS.
Right. I've never seen him like put his hands on it. I don't know what he does with it. I think Jerry Reed is like a guy that every guitar player should listen to. I think he's like one of the greatest rhythm guitar players ever. The way he picks out rhythm parts. And he can also play fingerstyle. Maybe Mark Knopfler. There's nothing Mark Knopfler can't do as good as the next guy. He can go play with Chet Atkins or I don't know. I'm not really thinking of modern people, but thinking of guys that I really like. And I play a lot of slide guitar, and I could attribute that to the time that I got to spend hanging out with Warren Haynes when I was like a young teenager. I got to spend like 2 weeks in a studio with him while he made a record, watching him play slide. So then I just studied everything he'd ever put out, and I learned all my slide guitar stuff from listening to Warren Haynes as a kid and Dwayne Allman. But yeah, definitely listen to more Warren Haynes. He's a bad dude. And then in the rock side, I really love Gary Moore. I love Eric Clapton. People crap on Eric Clapton's guitar playing a lot. I don't think it's cool, man. Because
especially his 80s guitar playing, a lot of people didn't like that. They just like Cream and they forget about...
The trouble with his guitar playing in the 80s was the state of music in the 80s, I don't think he really wanted to be making that kind of music. But in order to stay relevant, he had to do whatever pop radio dictated.
I like some of I like Bad Love. I like Journeyman.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
But also, like, when you're a guitar player coming up in the 80s, like, I saw guys on TV, like the guy from Dawkins, just, blah, 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 just shredding the house down. I'm like, this is going to be like 100 years before I can play guitar like that. But then, then I saw Eric Clapton, and, like, I could kind of pick out some of those licks he's doing, and he does them kind of soulfully and slow, and his sense of phrasing and stuff is, I still rip it off today. Yeah. I like when guys will play a lick, let a couple beats go by. Not that he invented it, but he certainly like brought that style of guitar playing to me because my parents were jamming out to Eric Clapton. And I just saw him in concert a couple months ago at the new Staples Center.
The Chase Center.
The Chase Center, that's the one. And I've been hearing all these stories. I've been seeing all these sad pictures of Eric Clapton getting pushed around in a wheelchair at the airport and all this talk about how he's deaf and he can't move his fingers anymore because he's got some kind of nervous disorder. And I was really nervous to see him for the first time because I love that guy so much. And then he was great. I thought, like, out of 10, I thought his guitar playing was a 9, and I thought his vocals were a 10. He was singing perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be coming up on 80, right?
I don't know. I guess he's probably 75 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what are we going to be able to do when we're 75?
Yeah, I don't know.
You going to be able to, like, pee standing up still at 75? Let alone go out there and, like, put on, like, a world-class rock show. Crazy to think that, like, that we're seeing the first generation of rock and rollers kind of make it to the finish line.
Yeah.
And think of the fact that when you consider the fact that Little Richard just died like a week ago or something, like the first generation of guys were like still out playing gigs until recently.
Yeah.
We used to think the Rolling Stones were old when they were 40. Look at them now.
Man, they're unbelievable. Unbelievable that they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Eric Clapton. I thought the 80s versions were cool, like even there's this one John Mayer song where like it's like a straight up 80s Eric Clapton solo.
I think you played that for me one time.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a sweet little tribute.
Yeah,
to the old man.
It was right there. It even kind of had that, like, there's a little modulation on a lot of those Eric Clapton solos in the 90s.
What is that?
I can't figure out if it's like just like a really like low rate of a chorus or a Leslie
I read somewhere
simulation.
that his only controls on stage, even now, are a wah-wah pedal and a Leslie button. Like, I don't know if it's on or off or fast or slow.
Now,
Definitely into the Leslie.
what about well, I know for sure, like, when he plays Badge, he needs the Leslie.
Right.
You need that Leslie
Definitely.
for that. You need it for that. But what was I gonna say? What about, when I bought that guitar from you at Guitar Center?
You keep bringing
Eric,
that up, that I used to work at Guitar Center.
well,
I've been trying to get people to forget about that locally for so long.
Well, this is
I
context.
used to walk around town and people would stop me and be like, I know you from somewhere. And I'd be like, you probably saw me at a gig somewhere or something on TV, maybe. Like, no, you used to work at Guitar Center. And then one day it shifted and they'd come up and be like, I know you from somewhere. I'd be like, I know, I used to work at Guitar Center. Like, no, I saw you in like a video or something.
No, Eric Clapton had a signature Digitech pedal called the Crossroads. And
What
remember,
did that thing even do? I kind of remember that.
It was like in the shape of a wah, sort of, and it was like bright yellow.
I'm sure he used it at every gig.
Yeah. I think there was a Leslie simulation on that too.
I hear funny stories about him through Chuck because Greg Leese produced one of Chuck's records.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Maybe Chuck Greg Leese, one of the greatest sidemen ever, right?
Yeah.
And he was in Clapton's band for a while. He's done his time in every band. But I guess Greg Leese had like a Dumble or something at a gig and he's playing through it. And Clapton's like, man, that sounds really good, What is that thing? Oh, it's this Dumble amp. They're kind of rare, Clapton's like, what do you want for it? He bought it off him right there on the spot.
Yeah, I saw actually we had some Dumbles on stage, a couple years ago. I remember seeing some combos that Eric Clapton had on stage.
Well, that's how I understand that he acquired it. He just bought
Like,
Greg Lee's.
I guess he bought a few more after that, if you like that one.
I guess so. He's probably a
Dang.
billionaire.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, this is cool. This is cool to although it's a sensitive subject, going back to the Guitar Center days.
Now you know.
Everybody had to make a living, man.
Yeah, man.
I would never met you, or I would have had any context to meet you in the same way had you not worked there.
How funny. Yeah.
So,
I mean, you remembered who I was. You remembered my name later or something when you called up for guitar lessons?
I remembered your name. I'm pretty good with that stuff.
People tell me that they met me at Guitar Center. I'm always nervous. Like, I hope I wasn't a dick to them.
No, I thought you were really cool. Yeah, I mean, obviously I remembered the Palmer's name.
Right, he's a legend.
Yeah.
He's kind of a fixture there. He worked there for like 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, I remember both those guys, both of you guys. I'm trying to remember who else I remember from that store. I think there's one other guy that I remember that like would always get fired and then he'd like be back like a month or two later. I don't know how that worked back then.
Yeah, I used to work there, and I worked there for probably much longer than I should have because I was afraid that I didn't know if I could make a living as a guitar player. But there were guitar players that I met in the scene they would walk into the store and be like, "There's no way you still work here. Why are you still here?" I'm like, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
But eventually, you got to like bite the bullet and figure out how to take the leap and leave the day job behind.
Man, there used to be so many good deals to get at Guitar Center. You used to really be able to like negotiate at a Guitar Center. It was like buying a car,
Like nothing was off the table before.
Man, I remember there was like a time when that stopped, and it was like a sad day where you couldn't like go in and like,
That was probably the reason they had to put a stop to that. I didn't care, man. Somebody like, could I get it for like 10% off? Sure. What about 20? Sure. What about 25% off? Sure. What about half off? Whatever. It's not my shit. I don't care.
Yeah. Those are the days, man. It was like you go into like a, like a flea market, you spit in your hand and you shake on it and that's the deal,
Right. That's good enough, man. Yeah, it's so primitive.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it's like now, but I don't want to know what it's like. I still have dreams sometimes that I work there and I wake up in a cold sweat. Like, oh, that's right. I'm a musician now. Thank God.
Yeah, those were the days. Well, James, I really appreciate you going through memory lane with me and talking about all that stuff and how you kind of got here. And I really appreciate, your friendship, knowing you, and being always so generous with your time and shooting demo videos for us and just being a fixture of good tone.
Well, I'm glad to know you, man. Nice to catch up with you, all that stuff. Say hi to Zeke for me, and say hi to Jenna as well.
Yeah, you do the same to Melissa.
All right, I'll see you on the honky tonk highway, man.
All right, see ya. So that was James DePrato. What a great talk. It's great catching up with him. He's always been so generous with us. He's done some demo videos for us and just has a really great approach to guitar. I love his tone. I love his simplistic kind of outlook at things. Just uses small amps, a couple of drive pedals, keeps it really basic, and just delivers on the tone 100% of the time. So thanks to James for talking with us today. I want to thank all the people behind the scenes that make this podcast possible. Blue Microphones for providing Yeti mics, boom arms, and pop filters. I also want to thank Hunter Harrison for mixing and engineering the podcast, Mason Mejia for co-producing, and Tim Marco for doing all of the music. Until next time, I am Mason Marangella, the Rig Doctor. See ya.